Hi, good evening. We're at day 16 of the Advent, and tonight I'm going to show you something that you can use as a last-minute gift. It's amazing the things you can do with rectangles. So this is just a ribbed rectangle, 8 inches by 10 inches for me. I chose 10 inches. You can choose, I picked a longer glove on my hand and a little bit up into my knuckles, but an 8-inch by 8-inch rectangle will work, or a square will work fine. You can use squares and cotton to make washcloths as gifts for people. You can take a square, or in this case a rectangle, and do fingerless gloves. You can take a rectangle and turn it into a hat with little cat ears. You can take a rectangle and turn it into a slipper by closing the toe and leaving this ankle, closing the heel, closing the toe, and leaving this hole a little bit bigger. All this is a rectangle. And here I have re-knit the ribbed rectangle. So this one is, I cast on 34 stitches. I did a rib stitch all the way up. Did so until my piece measures 10 inches tall. And I've got 2 more rows to go on this, and then I'll cast off. So I'll do that while I talk to you. Ribbing stitch. Now it just so happens that this is also the very similar to the almost absolute beginner's fingerless gloves kit that you can find on the website. It does not teach you ribbing off the go because that's a bit of a difficult stitch for an absolute beginner. It's more a second project stitch, but you make almost an identical shape with your absolute beginner's gloves. The only difference is you knit for 6 rows, and then you knit a row, purl a row, knit a row, purl a row, and then do a couple of yarn over, knit 2 togethers, and then bind off. With this pattern, we're going to do ribbing the entire glove. And I really like ribbing. I like ribbed sweaters. I like ribbed gloves. I knit all my socks ribbed all the way down and down the top of the foot. I have actually ribbed all the way down, heel and all the way down, not including the heel, but all the way down the foot with ribbing underneath the foot as well. I find those socks very comfortable. They look sort of wonky when you hang them up, so they look like an extra skinny sock. But I enjoy ribbed socks as well. So a ribbed pattern is quite nice. You don't have to just use worsted weight yarn. This 34 cast on is what I get for worsted weight yarn. And I believe these needles are 8s. I'm awfully sloppy. Yep, these are 8s. I'm a little sloppy with my needles. I just knit a gauge swatch all the time, and so I can pick up whatever pair of needles I want and adjust to fit whatever my needles are doing, or whether I like my fabric or not. You can also knit this out of fingering weight. Of course, it takes a lot more knitting to get a finished glove or finished rectangle, but it works fine. This one happens to be a cast on of 46 stitches, so not quite double as one would expect, but I'm also working this on a size 2.5 needle. If I'd done it on a 0, it may have been closer to double. But what I did with this fingerless glove is you put a seam up the side and leave an opening for your thumb. Unlike most fingerless gloves that get knitted in the round, this one you need a little bit extra room for the thumb opening because our thumb kind of sticks out, if you can see right there. And so what I do is leave a little bit extra opening for my thumb to fit through and that joint that kind of protrudes out from your hand. I rather find these gloves more comfortable, and definitely more comfortable than if you try to do a tube in the round and leave it open, just because you don't think about leaving it open. But this is a good 1.5 inches, maybe even 2 inches of opening. I brought my ruler out, but I'm not sure it's made it to the table here. But see how I leave it open enough so that it comes all the way down here, and you get your whole thumb out, not just the tip of your thumb. Normally, one knitted in the round, you would add a gusset to pull up into here. and maybe even go up a little higher into your thumb. But this is good, and this is a lot like those t-shirts with long sleeves that sometimes they give you a thumb hole for. So that's our glove. And I'm almost bound off with this one. And I will show you I went and knit when I should have been binding off. Good job, huh? I've got so engrossed in talking to you that I have finished the row instead of binding it off. I'm going to show you how you can embellish your knitted glove with a chain stitch. And it's just a bit of embroidery on top. And we'll start with this plaid pattern, but I am thinking of doing a crochet hat and show you how to embroider on that, or potentially a knitted hat, and we'll embroider a different design on it. My daughter's been asking for a hat, so we can do a little hat tutorial here and we can talk about that. Simple hat. These are all things that you should be able to finish in an evening. I finished the glove in about a half an hour, and I'm a you know, to be fair, I'm a fast knitter, so perhaps an hour, 2 hours is all you need to throw at a fingerless glove. 4 hours, 3 to 4 hours for a pair. Just knit 2 rectangles, and then we seam them up, and then a little embellishment on top. So this one I did seam up first because I wasn't sure where I wanted to position my embroidery. This glove, I've already worked it out, so I know where to stitch my first set of lines for the plaid, and I'll show you how to do that on with a chain stitch. You can put any style of embroidery. I tend to end up with a chain stitch fairly frequently, and mostly because I feel like it floats on top of the stitching quite well. But I'm going to show you the back side of this, and I actually kind of liked it. When I was hiding my ends, I took a look at the back, having not really looked at it after I did the chain stitch, and I kind of like it. It provides a little subtler plaid. 3 more stitches here, and I am binding off in the ribbing pattern. I'm not just doing a knitted bind off. There. I'm going to leave, I don't have a very long tail here, so I'm going to leave a rather long tail here to use as my seam. There, I've pulled that off, and so I just have, look, just a little little rectangle. Nothing special. It was a quick knit. So when I had this stitched together, I stitched the seam up here, so there's a seam here and a little bit of a seam here. So all you do is take this, I usually use my leftover cast on to knit up to here, and then in this situation I knit down, but on this one I'll probably break it off and pick up again. But I needed to position this, so I've marked it on the new one, although this one was a little more difficult. But look at the backside. It's not even, I haven't clipped off all my little tails from my hidden ends. But even that, let's just go ahead and put this on so we can see it. I'm gonna change hands. Even that's kind of cute. It's more subtle, but kind of cute. So if you feel like that chain stitch is too bold, perhaps do the chain stitch on the inside, and then you can see what you've got on the outside. All right, I'm going to show you how to do the chain stitch, okay? I have marked where I want this row to be, because the first stripe you chain stitch up over a knit space. So see how my ribbing is here? We're going up this knit line. So I'm going to start at the bottom and just throw my yarn in the back. I'll hide that tail later. I'm going to hold it with my hand. Give myself enough of a tail to take care of later. And then in between the 2 knit spaces, so in that little line in between, I put my needle back through, but then come out 2 bars, so see the bars here, 2 bars up. And then I pull, but be careful because I want to leave a loop. Here's my loop. I'm going to push the needle through the loop and pull gently. There's my first chain stitch. So I've just made a loop that stays. I'm going to go back down in between there, up, spacing myself 2 bars, pull, but leaving a loop, put my needle in, and gently tug. I've got 2 chain stitches. And I carry on like this, always going up 2 bars. So essentially it's 2 stitches. Pulling. Oop. Now if you pull too hard and your loop comes out, you can just rechain it. You can also do this stitch with a crochet hook. I don't, one, because I enjoy embroidery and using a needle, but also 2, I feel like when I knit with it, I can get a little more control. Now, if you get good, you know that this yarn's going to go around there. And when I pull, it's already positioned into the chain stitch. If I pull too tight, I can re-loosen it. There. Back down through the loop, up chain 2, position my yarn around, and through. Down, up through 2 bars, position my yarn around, pull. And again, down, up 2 bars, position my yarn around. Sometimes your stitching will, and you can work forward too. Sometimes your stitching will twist, so if you haven't put this around the right direction, it can cause a problem. So think about that. You can undo it and fix it. But you can see why it's a good idea to be using a blunt needle in this situation, because I'm not trying to pierce through the yarn. I'm trying to go in between stitches that already exist. I've gone through the loop. See? But see how it shows very much like a duplicate stitch, but I feel like it shows a little more boldly. And I've had trouble with in the past with duplicate stitches fading away, and then I can't get it to ride on top of those stitches as nicely as I'd like to. So that's why I've reverted to most of my embroidery being in the chain stitch. There we go, and I can safely remove this. I marked where the position of my first stripe with just this piece of scrap yarn so that I could keep track of it on camera for you guys. All right, we're almost to the top. Up there. And I'm just going straight up that knit stitch. And that's my first stripe. Just like that. At the top. Let's make sure I get 2. There. And I'm going to get a couple more stitches. I get 1 more stitch here. I did in the last one stop before I got to the end, so I'm going to leave this last stitch and not go through. So all I do to finish the chain stitch and stop it from unraveling, because if I were to pop this out here, this whole thing would just zip unravel. But I need to do a final securing stitch, and that's just to go through and pull down, and that locks that last stitch in place. There we go. Okay, now I'm going to move over and I'm going to skip the knit row and go over 1 more. So we have a knit, purl, purl knit, the next knit. And I'm going to run back down to the bottom in the opposite direction. Let's not pull too tight here. And I am leaving a trail in the back. Just make sure that you don't pull too tightly on it. And we're going to go the other way. So back into the space, skip 2 bars, or go under 2 bars, and go up. There we go. Down, skip 2 bars. Almost did 3 there. And up. So 2 rows, and then I'm going to skip again to get my 3rd row, and that will return in the direction. So you can see the direction of the chain goes up, direction of the chain goes down, and then back up again. And then these are just crossbars that go across the stitching. And I didn't count these, I just put them in a way that would look pleasing to me. But we can count the stitches, how far up they are. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's 8 stitches up for the first line, and then skip 2, another black line, skip 2, another black line, skip 2, another black line. These black rows are in between on the knit columns of the red stitches. So it's you skip 2 and you do the next one. I think this one skipped 3 and did the next one, and then I put red over the top in between the 4 black lines. So we had 3 cross hatching 3, and then 4 black lines across this way and 2 black lines up. But that's all there is to embroidering on your knit. And there are all kinds of things you can do. In fact, I was looking at a design last night that had flowers with lazy daisy petals at the top. So they did a flower stem. They did it out of a lighter weight yarn. So for example, I could pair the fingering weight onto this inside those knit stitches. There were Christmas trees that were chain stitched on. So all kinds of designs that you can use. This is the simplest and a good way to practice your chain stitch before you move on to more complicated things and go across the knit. I would also recommend that this ribbing sets you up for straight lines. If you did just a period of plain knit, that would probably be easier for your trees. I'm going to carry on doing this and make my second glove. My hands have been cold this week. I'm also going to finish this fingering weight pair of gloves and maybe even try a flower patch or something on that. The contrast color I've used for this is Donegal Aran, which is a worsted weight yarn, but the ply is different and therefore has more flex, which makes it work well with it plays nice with the soft Donegal, but works really well because it comes in 50-gram hanks. You don't need as much of it to use for contrast colors. We also use this for color work. I think that's it. I'll let you go. Oh, I do want to make sure. Let's cut this. So I am not going to do a face one again. I don't know if you noticed in the beginning shot that I've decorated my mantle and we've decorated our tree finally. We have a train that's not quite set up underneath, but in one of these videos we'll have the train running and I'll have that show for you. I like sharp darning needles normally. Did I put that down? Where is my sharp darning needle? I like sharp darning needles most of the time, especially when I'm hiding ends. Oh, here he is. Here's my sharp darning needle. So I like quite the point on them because when I hide my ends, I purposefully run the yarn end that I'm burying through itself and through the main body of the work, the yarn in the main body of the work, so that it more easily felts to itself and sort of embeds itself in and is well hidden. When I'm doing embroidery, you definitely can benefit from not such a sharp tip, but a dull tip, or the proper darning needle that you normally get at yarn stores. These are very often what you have in your stash. These needles are called chenille needles, and I do carry both because we looked so long and hard for these sharp ones. But it's worth having both in your arsenal of tools. I know this comes in a little tube, and these are the darning version. We sell these in like 5-6 packs for like a couple dollars. So you can get those for your embroidery stuff. But then also look for darning, or look for chenille needles to get the right yarn, the right finishing for hiding your ends. All right, I'm gonna just finish this and I'll say goodbye without moving the camera again. But I hope you guys are having a great holiday season. We are just finishing up baking, and we're about to send our tins off to family members who are far, and getting ready to do some on the road delivery. We may take you with us on that. Definitely, if you're watching this and you want to see us do our deliveries, let me know in the comments below, because I will take you along for a ride. We can use the cell phone or our small camera for that. We actually got a new selfie stick, so I haven't tried it out yet. Grayson has been not only helping but baking themselves, and they've got cranberry orange, or sorry, not cranberry orange, orange molasses cookies on the go today, so our house smells quite molassesy. They're the last item to go into the tins before we deliver. So tomorrow it'll be all hands on delivery and sending off to post offices. Atlas, for once, is quite happy to not be wandering into the kitchen because I'm not in there. In fact, right now he's sacked out on the sofa with his head under a pillow. Maybe it's a little noisy for him in here, you think? He's had his dinner, so he's satiated and ready for some napping. I hope you have a good rest of the week. We are 10 days away from Christmas Day. So I hope you've got everything you're doing ready to go. And we'll see you tomorrow. Goodbye.
Then you know it's Christmas, when the snow starts to fall. Then you know it's Christmas, for the children above all.